You're exactly right, and we need a new term for it. So I think where we've gotten it wrong is that people are social selling. They're sending
Mm.
empty pitch, connection requests. They're doing pitch slaps, but it's with a P, immediately pitching on there. They're going for the hard sell. They're only posting things about their company, webinars, press releases. I think you're right. I think, if we do think of social selling is not what we want to do. We need to come up with a new name. But again, as we talked about earlier, I have no creativity whatsoever given my business name. So we'll noodle on that. But to me, what kind of that modern selling is, right, or social selling, differently termed, is just the idea of how it's basically networking online. LinkedIn is a 24/7 networking playground where you can share your thoughts, you can weigh in on conversations, you can do all kinds of things. You can leverage information, you can read articles, you can see what your executives and prospects are posting about, or community members, your thought leaders. Like, it's really a place to learn, connect, share your thought leadership, and hopefully convert after you've earned the right to do that. I think a couple of things are fascinating to me about LinkedIn. So one, it's still an enigma for so many, so we're not really sure what to
Mm.
do. But if you are targeting, let's say, an executive, go to a few of the executives that you are hoping, especially if you are in B2B SaaS software sales, 100% are they posting, or people on their teams are. Go look at their posts and tell me if you see this. What you'll see is the executive, if they've shared the right way, tends to get a lot of engagement, lots of likes and claps and hearts and all of that, and almost no comments. It's wild. And to
Mm.
me, it's the equivalent of, like, they're standing in a room at a conference, they're shouting whatever it is they're talking about. They've got 100 people around them that are like, from afar. And then one person, probably me, is like, nobody's talking to her, or I'll go do it. And then you pop up and you start to have the conversation. So a really
Mm.
cool thing is that there's almost no competition whatsoever in terms of actually getting to your executive for social selling. The other great thing is, if you just take the time, right, like, to go curate a feed of buyers that you want to get in front of, and go and look at their content and start to comment. Again, it is the equivalent of walking a conference floor, seeing one of the executives that you're desperate-ish to get in front of, and be like, they're talking, and there's people around them. I'm going to go hear what they're saying. You go and listen. They say something, and then you're like, hey, I've got a thought on that. Here's my thought. Here's my perspective. Here's my weigh in on whatever you're saying. Don't just say, cool thoughts, Bill, and then stare at them.
Mm.
Give them something that's in your brain. I
Mm.
think on the executive side for posting, this is amazing. Edelman Research recently talked about how if an executive posts on behalf of their company, right? They work at a company and they post thought leadership, they are going to get 561% more reach than others in their company that are posting. That is insane. It's insane. And what you also think about is the trustworthiness factor, right? So Edelman also talked about this, how a company is 82% more trustworthy if executives are posting content. You're
Mm.
giving people something to read and an ability to network with those individuals. But as a seller, social selling to me has always been ever present, because I go in, I look through my feed, or I custom curate it, which I'll talk about in a second. But I comment through, I look to see what's going on, right? And then I maybe drop a note in, I drop a second and a third. And then in 3 weeks, I say, I really love your content, thought I'd reach out and connect. And then guess what happens? I'm connected to them. I have a two-way DM conversation that I can have. And because I'm commenting on their stuff, they're much more likely to see my stuff. Now, final thing I'll say on the social selling front, ways to be strategic and really curate this. One thing I'll do is I'll have a top 50 or 100 list of people that I would kill to get in front of, right? Like, how can I get a meeting with you? And what I'll do is I'll do that. I'll comment on their content, or I might connect with them directly and say, you don't post on LinkedIn, but I read your article, heard your podcast, loved your perspective on this. I feel so the same way. Thought I would say hello. Then in that connection request, though, I will think of a word, right? I've got a code word at Sam Sales. I'll think of a word that I don't always use. Maybe it's like curating or something like that, but it's
Mm.
rare that I use. And then what I do is I go and I search for that word on maybe a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. Oh, you have to work on the weekend. Yes, I know. Go and search for that word. Look at all the executives that you would do literally almost anything to get in front of, and look for what we call bubble hunting. Look for little green dots in front of their name in your LinkedIn inbox. And if you see a green dot, it means that they're online on their desktop and they're using LinkedIn. Send them a message. Have to follow up by your podcast. The reason I loved it so much was blah, 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 blah. Great point of view. This is something from my past, whatever, that I think about. Thanks again for the great stuff. Guess what happens? The person, more often than not, will reply. Then you start a conversation. Then you're back and forth. And you're like, oh, I got to run. Have a great weekend. And then on Tuesday, you pop back in. I just thought of our conversation. By the way, would you ever be up for a conversation? I think we can significantly help you this way, this way. If you're ever up for a chat, let me know. Again, more often than not, you'll get a ping back and somebody will take a meeting with you. I can't tell you how many deals we won that way. It's a little bit of a slower burn, but it's a much faster close, right? Because you're actually getting the person to respect you and take the meeting with you.